Hello, my name is Bill Zebedee, and I'd like to welcome you to the Jesus in the Movies and on TV series. This series is dedicated to my mother-in-law, Ann Thomas, who passed away in September 2020. I am basing this series in part on workshops Ann conducted around the world for almost 20 years. I'd also like to dedicate this series to my father, William Wellington Zebedee II, of whom I am named after. Dad passed in February 2021. Enjoy this series. Thank you very much.
After looking at actors who played Jesus from 1897 through to 1927, we're now starting to breach into the talking Christ, as we continue with what Richard Askoff called the passive Jesus. As mentioned in our previous episode, The Crown of Thorns from 1934 is a re-release of INRI from 1923. In 1935, Frenchman Robert Le Vigan, who was 35 at the time, took the role of Jesus in Golgotha, Behold the Man, which followed Christ during his final days as he entered Jerusalem. According to the Internet Movie Database, Golgotha was the first sound film made about the life of Jesus Christ. In 1946, Le Vigan was found guilty of being a Nazi collaborator and sentenced to 10 years hard labor. That's from FrenchFilms.org. After 3 years in prison, he was released and eventually ended up in Argentina, where he would live out the rest of his days. In Carl Theodor Dreyer's response to anti-Semitism in his unfilmed Jesus film scenario, author Peter G. Christensen said that Le Vigan was a member of the virulently anti-Semitic group of people around Louis Ferdinand Céline. 1942 saw the release of the first Spanish Jesus movie called Jesus de Nazareth, which starred José Cibrián as Christ. Internet Movie Database says most of the cast and crew were exiles from the Spanish Civil War. Another Spanish movie, this one Maria Magdalena Pecadora de Magdala, was released in 1946 and starred Luis Alcoriza as Christ. This is one of the most expensive movies ever made in Mexico, from the Internet Movie Database. Nelson Lee starred as Jesus in 1949's The Pilgrimage Play, an Old English telling of the Christ story. This would not be Lee's only turn as Jesus during the 1940s, as he would appear 13 more times as Christ in short films. He was also God's voice in Abraham's Faith from 1948, and in 1969 he provided the voice of Jesus in The Other Wise Man. 1951 saw The Living Christ Story and starred Robert Holton as Christ. Spanning 12 episodes, this would be the first TV miniseries made about Jesus from the Internet Movie Database. Holton, credited as Robert Wilson, would appear as Jesus again in 1953 in I Beheld His Glory, which used scenes from this series. Holton's biggest role would be in Day of Triumph in 1954. I have to say this, Holton, or Wilson, looks a lot like the stereotypical image we see of Jesus from Hollywood. Here I'd like to take a moment and mention Hill Number 1, a story of faith and inspiration, from 1951. This was part of the Family Theater series and starred James Dean in his first television role. The plot was interesting, as we saw a padre telling soldiers from the Korean War the story of Easter. These soldiers reenact the days leading up to the resurrection. Although this would be what Askoff called the absent Jesus, as no physical actor is seen, I wanted to point it out because of the plot and the fact that well-known Jesus actor Nelson Lee played the role of Joseph of Arimathea this time. Nelson Lee would put on his Jesus robe again in some of the episodes of 1952's 12-part television miniseries, The Living Jesus. Again, like with Holton, I would say that Lee had the quintessential Jesus look for Hollywood. 1952 saw another Mexican production called El Martyr del Calvario, The Martyr of Calvary, which starred Enrique Rambal as Christ. Robert Holton, a.k.a. Wilson, would reprise his role as Jesus in I Beheld His Glory, which was released in 1953. This was a movie where Jesus was seen in flashbacks told by a Roman centurion who witnessed the crucifixion. Holton, or Wilson, would then appear in Day of Triumph, released on Christmas Day in 1954. This was the first American film to dramatize Christ since DeMille's 1927 King of Kings. According to the Internet Movie Database, Nelson Lee was also considered for the role of Jesus, but Reverend James K. Friedrich insisted that Robert Wilson play Jesus. Christ's Apostle Peter tells the story of Jesus in the 1958 film The Power of the Resurrection, which starred John Shepard as Christ. In it, Peter talks about how he changed after the resurrection. And here ends Askoff's The Passive Jesus, what I am calling the talkie years. Next up is the epic Jesus. And please, good or bad, I have thick skin, leave your comments below and subscribe so you can be informed when future episodes are posted. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next episode.